Dr. Wayne Visser. Es líder en negocios sostenibles y regenerativos, innovación y liderazgo. Es profesor de práctica en la Católica Porto Business School, miembro del Instituto de Liderazgo en Sostenibilidad de la Universidad de Cambridge y profesor visitante en la Antwerp Management School. Autor de 44 libros, entre ellos el éxito internacional Thriving. Ha publicado más de 375 artículos. Es fundador de Kaleidoscope Futures Lab y consultora internacional cualitativa del Reino Unido. Coproductor del galardonado documental sobre economía circular Closing the Loop. El Dr. Visser es ampliamente reconocido por promover el pensamiento sistémico, el liderazgo regenerativo y la innovación con propósito. Dr. Wayne Visser. Doctora Margarida Mano. Es vicerrectora de Mejora Continua y Desarrollo de la Universidad Católica Portuguesa y doctora en Gestión por la Universidad de Southampton. La doctora Mano es presidenta de Transparency International Portugal y del Foro de Gestión de la Educación Superior en países y regiones de habla portuguesa. Ha colaborado con redes universitarias internacionales como Humane y RAWI. Su investigación se centra en la gestión estratégica, la garantía de la calidad, la gobernanza y el desarrollo institucional en la educación. Doctora Margarida Mano. Miki Sugimura. Nombrada primera mujer presidenta de la Universidad Sofía, es una distinguida académica en el ámbito de la educación y las ciencias humanas. Es doctora en educación por la Universidad de Tokio. Sugimura ha ocupado puestos administrativos clave, entre ellos el de vicerrectora de intercambio académico y vicerrectora de asuntos académicos globales. También es investigadora visitante en el Instituto de Investigación Ogata Sadako de la JICA. Profesora visitante en el Instituto de Estudios Avanzados sobre Sostenibilidad de la Universidad de las Naciones Unidas y vicepresidenta de promoción de la sostenibilidad en la educación de posgrado. Miki Sugimura. Doctora Ann Kiboy. Decana de la Facultad de Economía y Empresa de la Universidad Católica de África Oriental, es doctora por la Universidad Metropolitana Nelson Mandela de Sudáfrica y tiene un máster en Administración de Empresas por la Universidad de Nairobi. La doctora Kiboy es miembro de varios consejos nacionales e internacionales, entre ellos el Consejo Africano de Educación a Distancia y la Comisión de Ética de las Sociedades Cooperativas de Kenia. Su investigación se centra en la planificación estratégica, la calidad de la educación superior y la comercialización de productos agrícolas. Doctora Ann Kiboy. Katia Passerini. Vicepresidenta ejecutiva de la Universidad Seton Hall desde junio de 2020. En este cargo, dirige los asuntos académicos de la institución, incluyendo la planificación estratégica, el desarrollo del profesorado, la calidad académica, la investigación y las alianzas institucionales. Con un doctorado y una sólida trayectoria en liderazgo académico, su gestión se centra en la excelencia y la inclusión. En julio de 2025, asumirá la presidencia de la Universidad Gonzaga. Doctora Katia Passerini. Sean bienvenidos a la Universidad del Valle de Atemajac.
Thank you. It's only 2 weeks that I've been at Gonzaga, so this video was done before. I am so delighted to be welcoming all of you, and I'm delighted that these videos are so well done so that we can focus directly on content. And you have already learned about the great accomplishments of every one of our speakers. So I'll tell you how we're going to do this. We will have a keynote introduction by Professor Wayne Visser, and then it will be followed by respondents. And we will start with Africa, Kenya, Dr. Ann Kiboy. It's about 11 p.m. now in Africa, so we will want her to go first, like right after our keynote. And she will be followed by Professor Miki Sujimura, that will talk about the experience of Sophia University. And last but not least, Dr. Margarida Mano, that will bring us back to Universidade Católica Portuguesa. Each one of the panelists will give examples from their own universities. So the way we have organized this is to be both theoretical and practical. We will ask questions, but we'll also give you time to ask questions at the end, we hope. The examples will focus on what universities, Catholic universities and beyond, are doing to drive change and to drive impact. And this will encompass environmental, social, and governance. So universities driving impact. So for those of you who are staying at the Westin, raise your hand, Westin, anybody? Yes, so you probably have seen this in your room. It does say, make an impact. Help us help the environment by hanging your towel for future use. We'll replace towels left on the floor. Funny, but it's not just a business trick to save money. It's really a commitment to the environment. And you'd be wondering, can we really make a difference with just one simple act like this? And what you will hear today is that many of those simple acts, many of the work that those universities are doing and your university are doing make a difference, they make an impact. In fact, the back of this says, haga la diferencia. So we will learn about universities investing in students completing service hours, developing a whole set of new courses to further the sustainable development goals, all anchored around foundational work, such as Laudato Si, for the care of the environment, Ex Corde Ecclesiae, for universities as drivers of social change. And for those Jesuit institutions in the room, we'll hear about the universal apostolic preferences, promoting discernment through the spiritual exercise, walking with the excluded, caring for our common home, and journeying with the youth. We will learn about different ways of making an impact. For example, Dr. Visser will share his research on attitudes of our young generations, who are often dissatisfied with our social responses, and their dissatisfaction becomes activism, challenges abilities, and we sometimes do not know how to react and what to do with this activism, which is mostly a cry for action from our students. We receive pressures because our universities are polychromatic. Too little color, according to some, or too much color, according to others. But universities are open to different views. And the problem is that universities educate minds freely. And free minds tend to choose purpose over greed, common good over individual rewards, long-term thinking versus short-term election results. And because we educate such open minds, then sometimes in our own countries, we might be attacked for what we teach, what we say, or what we do. Does it sound familiar? What we teach, what we say, or what we do. I must have read this somewhere else in a book. It's called the Bible. Someone who was attacked for what he thought, for what he said, and for the miracles that he did. But we, universities, go on and create new initiatives like the ones that we will hear today, frameworks and grassroots actions that we know will be successful and will build successful societies in the long run. Because when you hear what these universities are doing, these universities that are represented today, you cannot do anything else but follow. Thank you very much, and I'd like to welcome Dr. Visser to the room, to the podium.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be with you and to spend a few moments reflecting on this wonderful concept of choreographic knowledge for social impact. Let's begin then with the challenges of the times that we live in. This should be a familiar set of issues. It's from the World Economic Forum, the annual Global Risks Report that they do, and over the next 10 years, the global leaders say we face numerous risks and crises, misinformation, extreme weather, state-based armed conflict, social polarization, cyber security issues, pollution, and so on. These will be familiar to anyone who opens their news feeds in the morning. And exacerbating this is that we live on a finite planet. This is the donut economics model of Kate Raworth that shows that we have planetary boundaries, 9 of them, and the red on the outside shows that we've already exceeded 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries, and we haven't yet met any of the social foundations which are represented in the middle. So we live in challenging times. It's a nice quote from Pope Francis. The world is not experiencing an era of change, but a change of era. I think that couldn't be more true. As a result, dissatisfaction is high. If you look at the Edelman Global Trust Barometer that comes out every year, in the most recent one, 6 out of 10 people hold grievances against business, against government, against the rich. Why? Because they feel business and government serve only the few. They feel business and government's actions hurt them, that the system favors the rich, and that the rich are simply getting richer. And then if you factor in that all of the elections we had in the last 12 months haven't really changed this picture, if anything, it seems to have gone in the opposite direction. Across all forms of leadership, of institutions, people from countries around the world, according to this survey, fear that leaders lie to us all the time, meaning they purposefully mislead us. That's in business, that's in government, and that's in the media. So how do we respond to this? Well, people are searching for 2 things in institutions. One is a sense of ethics, and the other is competence. They need to be able to function. What's interesting here is that perhaps it's not surprising, but government is seen as both unethical and incompetent. NGOs, we might expect, on the vertical axis there, are seen as the most ethical, but haven't yet proved that they are competent. They're also not seen as incompetent, but rather surprisingly, business in the last few years has moved up into the ethical zone and is also regarded as being more competent. But maybe that is just a smokescreen. Maybe that's just good public relations. Because when you ask sustainability experts around the world, in this GlobeScan survey that gets done every year, which institutions do we think have made the most progress on sustainable development since 1992? If you recall the Rio Earth Summit, all that time, 35 years ago, what you see is that we believe business is not really making the contribution that we would hope. The good news for us is that both NGOs and academic institutions, research organizations, universities, are seen as the ones making the most contribution. Well, we talked a little bit about already the dissatisfaction, and this is most manifested in young people. And not surprisingly, they're unhappy because even if we survey everybody in the world, what we find is that only just over a third of us think that the next generation will experience a better life than we did. We're basically mortgaging the future. And so naturally, they are dissatisfied. And in fact, it starts to manifest in extreme behavior. 4 out of 10 people surveyed favor what is called hostile activism. And if you look at just the young people, that goes up to over 50%. What does that mean? It means they feel they're justified in attacking people online, in spreading intentionally disinformation, in threatening to commit violence, and even in damaging public and private property. This is a cry of desperation and frustration. And the question is, can we respond? If we just see this as protests, as young people doing their thing, expressing their grievances, we really miss the point. This is a social movement, and it's gaining momentum. The bigger the problems become, the less the progress we make, the more active becomes the social movement, and we ignore it at our peril. But universities are so well placed to respond to that social movement, because as we've already started to see from the data, universities and in this case scientists and teachers as leaders of those institutions are among the most trusted in society as compared, say, with government leaders or CEOs of corporations. So we do have the opportunity to use this vast network of 250 million students in 25,000 universities around the world to make a positive change. But we have to earn that trust. And the way that we do that, according to the students, is by showing that we live the values. And it's quite illustrative what those values are that they're looking for in universities. And this is according to a survey of students across 124 countries. And it has to do with equal opportunities and inclusiveness. It has to do with respecting and protecting and fighting for human rights. It has to do with partnerships with the community on social and environmental issues. It has to do with student welfare, with supporting the activism of students on sustainability. It has to do with freedom of speech, an interesting and increasingly difficult one, protecting and supporting biodiversity, committing to ethical working practices, ensuring that there's carbon neutrality in terms of climate change, and committing to diversity in workplaces. If we're not doing all of these things, we're not going to earn that trust that it seems young people are ready to give us. Now, universities haven't been standing still. They haven't been deaf to the call. There are literally dozens of institutional initiatives to respond to these challenges, whether that's the Higher Education Sustainability Initiative, the Association of University Leaders for a Sustainable Future, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, the Principles for Responsible Management Education. I could go on. There are also ratings of universities now that start to take into account the social and environmental impact of those universities, such as the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings, or an interesting one, the Positive Impact Rating, which is actually a rating by students for students about the institutions that they belong to. So we have many of the guidelines, we have many of the commitments, and the question is whether we're out there living those commitments. Now, of course, Catholic universities have an additional opportunity because you have this wonderful network of over 1,300 Catholic universities. The Federation here has its own intimate network. been operating, as we heard, for over a century. And again, you haven't been idle either. You have been working on how to respond to that. And I'm sure this is an initiative that probably all of you are aware of, but it's worth looking at, the Newman benchmarking framework. 3 years of work, 160 indicators and 20 criteria across these various areas: institutional governance, environmental protection, the practices of the employer, in the 3 missions: research, teaching, and community outreach, and overall consistency. So if this is not something you're familiar with, of course, it is absolutely essential that you take all of this good work that's been done in the Federation and use it in your own institutions. Now, just to bring this alive, you have all of these sources of inspiration going back literally hundreds of years. John Newman, I already heard mentioned today, with his idea of a university dating back to 1852. And he has this wonderful quote: "The aim of a university is intellectual culture and the diffusion of extension of knowledge rather than the advancement." And then, I don't know how controversial this is, but I think this is also part of your heritage, a great activist for education, Paulo Freire, going back to 1970 with his Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And he said education either functions as an instrument of conformity or as a means of liberation. And I would say that continues to challenge us today if you look at what's happening, especially in the United States, around their institutions. And then we have, of course, some very specific guidance from Pope John Paul II, the Ex Corde, and this wonderful quote: "The Christian spirit of service to others for the promotion of social justice should permeate the university community." And last but not least, Pope Francis with his Laudato Si, and these words: "We need to promote a new way of thinking about human beings, life, society, and our relationship with nature." So no lack of inspiration to draw from in this community of universities. Well, just to make it a little bit more real, I bring the case of my own institution, Católica Porto, Portuguese University, Catholic University of Portugal. And of course, like many of your universities, the absolute foundation and the differentiator is the set of values, whether that's integral ecology, responsible participation, or any of the others. The question with values is always, are they lived values? Are they embedded values? Or are they just values on a website or in a report or on the wall? And I think, as I'm sure is the case in many of your institutions, we have a lot of evidence that these are not just idle values. So in the case of teaching at UCP, more than 1,600 master's and PhD theses last year were categorized as having an impact on the Sustainable Development Goals. And here are just a few of many examples of the teaching programs and the degrees that we offer in the area of ethics and sustainability through the university. A nice quote from John Paul II, Pope John Paul: "A Catholic university is distinguished by its free search for the whole truth about nature, man, and God." The second of the 3 missions, of course, is research and knowledge transfer. Here, in our own analysis, more than 1,500 of the publications and more than 230 of the research projects that we have, once again, have been shown to be having an impact on the Sustainable Development Goals. For those who know the goals, you might be able to make out the ones where the most impact is being had. It's on health and well-being, of course, on education, on innovation and infrastructure, on peace, justice, and strong institutions, and on partnership for sustainable development. Part of the knowledge transfer, of course, is getting out and beyond the university and collaborating in partnerships, and here we do a lot as well. So we have, for example, in my area of work, the Innovation in Sustainability and Regeneration Hub. This is a group of around about 100 companies, business associations, and even government and city authorities who get together to try to push forward sustainability through collaboration with each other and with the university. We have a new center that I'm lucky enough to head up called the Católica Center for Thriving Futures, where we're really focusing on policy, on business and innovation and technology, and we collaborate between the business school, the biotechnology school, and the law school. We're also involved, as some of you may be as well, in the Transform for Europe partnership. Another nice quote, this one from John Newman: "A university is a place where inquiry is pushed forward, discovery is verified and perfected, and rashness rendered innocuous." I'm sure nobody would ever accuse any of us of being rash. The last area of the three missions then, of course, is social and environmental impact. And in this case, one of the things I'm proud of is that we really try to quantify those impacts. And you can focus on whatever is of most interest to you, but on diversity and inclusion, for example, including refugees in the student population, on helping to support financially students that may not otherwise get the opportunity, ensuring gender equality, volunteering, so more than 24,000 hours of volunteering in the community, more than 100 social partners in social well-being and cultural areas as well. Similarly, on the environmental front, a lot of work being done, and importantly, that work being quantified, whether that's on monitoring electricity or water footprints, on waste and the circular economy, on the carbon footprint. I know we've recently in Porto been installing solar panels on the roofs for this very reason, electric charging for the cars, planting trees, and so on. I'm sure everybody will have their own version of these and partnerships and projects, but I really think it's important that you're able to demonstrate this evidence of impact. So as I start to draw this to a close, I want to leave you with three questions. Are our universities reinforcing elitism or overcoming class divisions? We can refer here to the work of Pierre Bourdieu. His theory of cultural capital suggests universities legitimize privilege under the guise of meritocracy. That's quite a strong accusation, and we need to sit with that and ask ourselves honestly whether we're part of this problem or part of the solution. The second question we might ask ourselves: are our universities overly politicized, or is it the opposite? Are they not engaged enough with the issues of the day that everybody is grappling with? In the US, for example, just over a third of voters believe that they don't have much or no trust in public colleges and universities. And is that because they're too politically engaged, or because they're not engaged enough? And I think probably both are true in different circumstances. And then the final question: are our universities agents of capitalism or catalysts for a better society? The Dean of Harvard College says, "We are creating leaders with unshakable faith in markets, but little concern for ethics." So these are questions for all of us to reflect on. And I think this is a nice quote from Friar Kevin O'Brien. "Our goal is not to create leaders of the world, but leaders for the world. Leaders who will transform society through faith and service. One of the final quotes, not the final quote, but one of them that I'd like to draw your attention to is this wonderful quote by Pope Francis. It is time for universities to assume their historic responsibility and become laboratories of hope for the sake of future generations. And I'm sure many of you are working with young people, as I do, and we're facing a real crisis of anxiety among young people, a lack of hope, a belief that the world is in severe trouble and that their future will not be better. But I want to add to this that hope is not something passive. I love this quote by Rebecca Solnit. She's an author, a journalist, and an activist, and she wrote a book called Hope in the Dark. And she says, hope is not a lottery ticket you sit on the sofa and clutch feeling lucky. Hope is an axe you break down doors with in an emergency. Hope should shove you out the door because it will take everything you have to steer the future away from endless war, from the annihilation of the earth's treasures and the grinding down of the poor and marginal. To hope is to give yourself to the future. And that commitment to the future is what makes the present inhabitable. And I would just add that, hope may be a scarce resource, but it is also a renewable resource. So let me leave you with some words of my own. I sometimes, in fact, rather often shock people by ending with poetry. And there's a reason I do that. I think we have to engage not only people's minds, but also their imaginations, their creativity, and most of all, their hearts. So this is a poem called A Place to Thrive. Is the world a better place because we lived and loved and learned? What will our children have to face because of what we built and burned? Are people better than before because we gave them dignity? What happened to the sick and poor while we were living strong and free? Is the world a fairer place because we fought for equal rights? And who lost for us to win our race? Or did we open up new heights? Is nature thriving, great and small, because we walked upon the earth? Did oceans rise and species fall with every breath we took since birth? Is our world a dying place because our enterprises grew? Did we destroy our living space, or did we seed the world anew? Each day we get to use our voice to raise the tide or let it ebb. Each day we face a simple choice to nurture life or fray its web. Let's let the world be better still for every moment we're alive, because we choose to use our will to make our earth a place to thrive. Thank you. And I believe I'll be joined by the panelists and respondents on the stage now.
There we go. Thank you. So I know that there is someone waiting for us online. If we can bring her in. She's very excited about one of the questions. What will our children have to face because of what we built and burned? And I know she has a very long answer, but we'd like to hear from her first, if the connection is working, and then we'll go to the Q&A. Yes, Dr. Kiboy. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much, Katia, and good evening, everyone. I will get straight to my bit because I know Katia gave me 7 minutes, and this is how I intend to do it. I will just give a bit of background of Catholic University of Eastern Africa. I give a few examples of what Catholic University of Eastern Africa has done as a driver of social impact. And then I delve into two of the many questions Professor Wayne posts in his last slide. And a quick background of the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. It was founded by the Association of Member Episcopal Conferences in Eastern Africa, AMESEA, in 1984. And last year, the year 2024, the university celebrated 40 years of existence, having grown in leaps and bounds, guided by its motto, which is consecrate them in truth, as noted in the words of John 17:17. And more to that, Catholic University of Eastern Africa provides more than just educational content. It provides information revolving around life skills and social skills, and it is well known in the region for its foundational pillars grounded in spirituality and faith. Additionally, Catholic University not only educates the mind, it also aims to nourish the soul of the student, and that makes it likable to many parents of the students. Catholic University has a vision that is very good, and we not only dream, we actually have woken up to realize our dream, and we strive to be a world-class university producing transformative leaders for the church and society, and to make our vision tangible, because a vision is just a dream about any organization and about our university. To make our vision tangible through the mission statement, in other words, the purpose of the Catholic University, it is anchored in a deep commitment to advancing knowledge, nurturing learners of the university, and fostering positive society impact. And this is through our 3 pillars of the university. We have 3 pillars, that is research, community service, and teaching. And in the realm of research, the learners strive to generate innovative insights that address contemporary challenges and contribute meaningfully to their individual fields. They are trained to prioritize inquiry that is both rigorous and relevant, engaging with interdisciplinary perspective and emerging technologies to uncover transformative solutions. On the other hand, in the realm of teaching, Catholic University of Eastern Africa seeks to cultivate an inclusive and stimulating learning environment where students are empowered to think critically. They are also empowered to communicate effectively and pursue lifelong learning. In other words, we aim at bringing forth an all-round student. We do this by integrating experiential learning, mentorship, and real-world application into the curriculum. The Catholic University of Eastern Africa aims to equip future leaders with the tools to thrive both academically and professionally. And that is why you find we not only give academic programs, we also have professional programs in the university. Beyond academia, Catholic University of Eastern Africa learners and staff, they participate in community service initiatives. These bridge the gap between the university and the broader society, whether through partnerships with local organizations, outreach programs, or public education efforts. Catholic University of Eastern Africa believes in using its expertise to promote equity, innovation, and sharing progress. At the Catholic University of Eastern Africa, our commitment to excellent research, teaching, and community service is deeply inspired by the values of faith, reason, holistic education, which are embedded in the Catholic University core values, which are expressed through a commitment to prayer, witness to life, truthfulness, honesty, excellence, commitment, and competence. In Kwea, that is Catholic University of Eastern Africa, we believe that knowledge creation is not only a pursuit of academic excellence, but also a means of serving humanity and advancing common good. That is just a bit of what Catholic University is. It is more than that, and I hope and wish next year or the next time there is the assembly, it is brought to Kenya and Africa, and you see for yourself what it is. I want to give just a few examples of where as a driver of social impact. And the Catholic University of Eastern Africa has made significant strides as a driver of social impact in Kenya and the wider East African region. And one of them, beginning with academic research for policy and development, we find that where scholars, when I say where, it's the short form of Catholic University of Eastern Africa, they have contributed to research on poverty reduction, health policy, and education financing, influencing national and regional development strategies. This we find many students, while they are carrying out research, because we know in all the universities, 50% of the work done is to do with research. There is a research that was carried out in the faculty, which was entitled The Effects of Cost Sharing on Health Service Utilization in Kenya and Financing Early Childhood Education in Kenya. Yeah? They have informed public discourse and policy reforms. The results were actually borrowed by various ministries and more so the Ministry of Education. The other one is ethics and social justice advocacy. In our university, we have a department, or rather a faculty, called Center for Social Justice and Ethics. In this center, where promotes Christian ethics in governance, peace building, and anti-corruption efforts. There's also the faculty research, which has addressed issues like restorative justice, environmental sustainability, and human rights. It shapes conversations around ethical leadership in Africa. And we usually hold very many conferences, seminars around this. The third one is community-based projects. The Catholic University of Eastern Africa has supported initiatives like the Koinonia Community Social Projects in Nairobi. I don't know, I need to enlarge so that you can see me. Wow. I hope you can see me clearly.
A little bit. We see half of your face, and I know you are in your last point, and then we'll move to our speakers.
Let me try to bring down this one so that you can see my face clearly. Let me do.
We will come back to you as you adjust your camera, and we'll move now from Kenya all the way to Japan. Dr. Miki, tell us a little bit about Sophia University, and hang in there. We will come back at the final round. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Ketia. And thank you very much for including me. It's a very great honor to be here today. Reflecting Dr. Visser's three very important questions, if I may point out my perspective, the first one is we need to overcome the class disparities, and also we need to be the catalyst for the better society. And the second point you questioned about why the university now politicized, or in that sense, it's a little difficult for me to answer it, but now it's a lot of the eco-political issues have happened, so that's why we need to think about how we can be the driver of the social impact for this very controversial point. But if I just quote the Father General of the Jesuit School of Society of Jesus, he pointed out before the 4 pillars should be very important when we establish our universities, the policies, education, research, and social engagement. First one is poverty and development and environment, but ethics should be very important. He emphasized that point. As now the Dr. Hiboi also mentioned this point, and I totally agree with this point. If we can make or nurture the next generation as a global leadership might be one of the answers, because laboratories of hope, also Dr. Visser already pointed out, this is a very important point. Our Sophia University, the Jesuit private university in Japan, which was established in the 1913, we now cherish the policies. When the Pope Francis visited our Sophia University in Tokyo in 2019, he delivered a wonderful message to the students. He said the university should be a center not only for intellectual formation, but also a place where a better society and a more hope-filled future can take shape. And also he pointed out and emphasized the love for nature should here find expression in a sapient and foresighted concern for the protection of the earth, our common home. We are very, very impressed by the Pope Francis message at that time. Of course, Sophia also celebrate the Jesuit motto, for others with others, but we need to think about or rethink the school societies, Jesus, or the Catholic University's mission. The Sophia has signed its commitment of Pope Francis, the 7-year journey towards integral ecology, and his love of the sea is still very inspired us. Sophia established the ESG spirit. E means is we will endeavor to reduce our environmental impact and realize a recycling-oriented society. And also we will engage in creating an environment where we can all learn and work together in safety and comfort. And we will pursue initiatives to promote sustainability through collaboration among students, staffs, and also the stakeholders and societies. Jesuit Society also proposed a universal apostolic preference, and this was categorized in 2019. Apostolic priorities are outlined in the Universal Apostolic Preference of the Society of Jesus, which called it UAP. And these are 4 pillars to show the way to God through the spiritual experiences and exercise and discriminant, to walk with the poor, the outcast of the world, those whose dignity has been violated, in a mission of reconciliation and justice, and to accompany young people in the creation of a hope-filled future, and to collaborate in the care of our common home. In spirit of this Jesus and also Catholic University's principles, Sophia also engaged in the education, research, social networking and engagement, and management and campus development. For example, the education, we also focus on the interdisciplinary approach, and we Japan universities, usually the medium of instruction is based in Japanese, but we have created a lot of the English track program, which means is not to promote the internationalization, but by using the English or other languages. Now Sophia teaching the 22 languages, focusing on the diversity. We need the students or researchers to think together to those more interdisciplinary areas through the programs. So we can create a Sophia program for sustainable futures or global environmental studies. And in the 2 years later, we started the green transformation or digital transformation, a new science and technology program, also tracked in English. Quite recently, we also introduced some COIL, Collaborative Online International Learning, which gives more opportunity for enlarging the learning together cross borders and cross ethnicity or cross religion and cross languages issues. The research, also very important area, but research, as I already told you, more focusing on the inter or transdisciplinary approach, because now there's a lot of issues, as Dr. Visser already pointed out, a lot of the area which the university faces should be considered from cross-border or cross-disciplinary approach. So in that sense, we can have a good networking. Of course, partner universities, there are a lot of partner universities here today, but not only the universities, we are the international societies, especially United Nations or UNESCO or UNHCR or FAO, WFP. Those are kind of international society or the United Nations family should be very important for us to enlarge our good perspective. So on the campus, twice a year, we celebrate the UN Week or African Week to encourage us to think about those kind of global issues together. And also quite recently, the Sophia came to the UNESCO chair. Our chair motto is education for human dignity, peace, and sustainability. So now we are more collaborate with the UNESCO or other some international organization or international NPO and try to enlarge our activities more. Finally, university also need to manage ourselves. And now as a president, I must be responsible for these kind of matters. But for example, we need now is a ESG investment. ESG investment is not only just to get the profit, we can return back to that profit for the futures, the education program, through creating some scholarships or something. So that's just our vision from our Sophia University's case. So thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And perfect timing. And now from Japan, we go back to Portugal with some more examples from Catholic University. Dr. Margarida.
Oh, it's okay. Thank you very much. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here, and it's not just a pleasure; it's a privilege to be here and to contribute and participate in this important talk and role about the role of Católica University in driving social impact. In fact, Dr. Visser's keynote emphasized a concept that we think is very important in Católica's universities, in our University Católica Portuguesa, is indeed always present. And it's the question of the values. You spoke about the integrating the value and the creation of the values. And in fact, there's this idea in certain way that universities should not only pursue the academic excellence, but also embed social environment and economic and social impact. And the impact is the action and the action and the results of the action, and especially also the expectations of the community about what we are doing are more than teaching and research, and teaching and research is already a high goal. So this is not simply about having new layers to what we are already doing, to do best teacher, to do best research, to be more social responsible. But in fact, this is about rethinking all teaching and research and integrate it in a fundamentally connected with the common goal. And this, of course, it's a very tough question for the university in our days. If we're talking about the values, and we did it, it was a very rich presentation. Also, equally, you were striking the emphasis of this centrality of values in what we are doing, and values shape not only our institutional identity, and it was a lot. It is a lot, and we were listening about yesterday and today. In fact, the values are in our DNA, but also our legitimacy in the eyes of the community, of the students, of the society. And this is very important, especially in a time where trust in institutions is being questioned. And so values became like a compass of resilience, very important. You mentioned the QS student survey in 124 countries, where students are saying that they are asking for some values like equal of opportunities, human rights, community engagement, and freedom of speech, and what they identify, what they want. That are institutions and universities that take it into account. So these are not abstract ideals. They are expectations, and our institutions are not only judged by what we teach or what we research, but what we are doing, the examples, the leadership examples, of course, and the action that we have in our ambience and environment. So I think it was perhaps the most, not the most important, but the point that links a lot with University Católica of Portugal, Portuguese. Well, in fact, you were generously highlight several examples that we made and reflect our values. Católica Universidade Portuguesa, Universidade Católica Portuguesa, because with English and Spanish we are, but of course in Universidade Católica Portuguesa we are deeply committed to advancing social impact and through sustainability, innovation, and also global collaboration. And perhaps I can just highlight one example. It was there in a slide, in a small picture, but I think it's perhaps an emblematic initiative, and it's our SDG courses. They were developed under the strategic framework of this SDG shares, and in fact, what the initiative aims was to integrate subjects that dedicate to sustainability, to the problems of the SDGs into the curricula. But the point was to introduce one each semester, but the point was it was not just to join syllabus that we have already in different departments or faculties. It was to build together different, colleagues from different faculties, a new syllabus that had the aim to answer to the problem that is in the SDG. It was for us a very, challenging experience. We do it, it's important to say that we started we made a questionnaire, a survey in the students, and we asked them what are, in their perspective, the most important ones, where start. And we have already 4. They are the climate action, the SDG 13, the life below water, 14, the quality of education, the 4th, and the 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. But this was very interesting because why these courses are distinctive. They are distinctive because they are, in one point, they are interdisciplinarity. Why? Because they are involving, as I said, lectures from different campus and disciplines for all the university. But they are also inclusive because any student in any course can do it, is open to from any programs and location, and also they are they are internationally recognized because in 2023 the United Nations Academy UNI gives us stamp of initiative. There's one of the best practices global in the world about integrating SDGs into curricula. So this is an example where we are not talking about teaching. We are talking about putting researchers together from different fields to give not just a program. This is not just a program, in fact, but this is more a perspective of values that our students must have as world citizens. So, I don't know, I think the time is already done. Okay?
Perfect timing.
So a question.
Thank you. Yes,
right?
and
After.
So thank you for your overview. I'd like now to swing back to you, asking you one of the questions that you asked in your poem. So we saw a lot of metrics. Your presentation grounded us not only in the theological framework, surveys, but also a series of tools that we can use to quantify the impact that we are having. And it's a very, very rich set of tools based on values and based on a lot of initiatives. Miki, you mentioned the ESGs and investing in ESGs. And I think about my own university where we have an ESG fund and we encourage our donors to invest in that fund. And then we have the students. And the students tell us it's not enough. It's not enough. So my question is, with all those metrics that we have and that we've built, is that enough? And you said it in your second line, what will our children have to face because of what we built and burn, and how do we do more?
Thank you for the question. The way that I like to reflect on this, and I do this with companies as well, because they also are in the spotlight and are suffering from a trust gap, is there's a very simple two-part test, and I call it the test of admission and ambition. I think every institution today says they're doing something on the Sustainable Development Goals, something on ethics, something on responsibility, on community. That is no longer enough to convince, especially young people, because what they see are the problems getting worse. So until now, what we've seen from institutions is a lot of patting themselves on the back. We've done a little bit of it today ourselves, right? How all the wonderful things we're doing. but not really admitting that we are part of the problem, that institutionally, in the fabric of our economies, our societies, we are perpetuating the problems. And I think that's the first way that you get beyond that skepticism, maybe even cynicism of young people, is first to admit that we are part of the problem and that whatever we've done in the past hasn't been enough and hasn't worked. So something more radical as in going to the root, needs to change. The second part of the test is ambition. Are we prepared to be ambitious in our strategic goals? If we just have a lot of indicators, a lot of measures, but they're like, I'm going to improve a little bit, I'm going to reduce my waste a little bit, I'm going to improve my volunteering hours a little bit, it doesn't convince anybody because the scale and the urgency of the problems are so big. So unless you're committing to net zero, hopefully ahead of the deadline, maybe by 2030, maybe by 2035 or 2040, it's not enough. Hopefully you're going for net positive. Unless everyone is doing some form of volunteering, if you only have 5 or 10% of your student population volunteering, clearly it's not enough. So that would be one of the sort of tips, I would say, is to have admission and have ambition. And then, you start to bring students on board. But we also have to engage students critically in the sense that there's a paradox there as well, right? We see surveys that say young people are stronger on the values that we care about. They care about the environment, they care about justice. And if you look at how they behave, they often contradict that, right? They still want all their gadgets, they still want all their conveniences. Of course, they still want to fly for their holidays, whatever it may be. So I think we also have a role in being challenging to the students to say, yes, we want to be part of the solution, but how can we challenge you to also be part of the solution?
All right, thank you. We have a few minutes for questions from the audience. So we have one over there, and if I will need some help to give the mic. Over there, all the way to the right. Over there. Sorry, to the left. You're right, yeah.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for that wonderful panel and presentation. I have one observation and two small questions. I will not take much time. Number one, the world has agreed upon an agenda of beating plastic pollution for a second time in 2 years. And it is found to be a major health hazard for all, humans, soil, and other beings. And here we are, now using almost 100 avoidable plastic bottles on these tables, a major cause of plastic pollution, as leaders of Catholic universities, and really getting bothered about what impact we create. That's one observation I make. Two questions. One question, while measuring impacts in terms of inputs, academic and eco-social engagements, can there be any mechanism by which what is the impact on society as such? Lived values, leadership values translated into business and stated policies and programs. The other examples are very well taken, but this is a botheration for me. That what's the impact we create after 50 years of being there, after 100 years of being there? Are our values getting translated into creating policies and programs? And my last short question, you stated that compared to business organizations, voluntary organizations and education institutions are impacting the planet-oriented action more positively. I like that, but could you kindly make it more specific, if possible? Thank you.
I don't want to hog the mic, so we need to share among our colleagues also, but a quick response. You're absolutely right on plastic, and I could pick other issues, right? We have to live the values, and live the values means making different choices ourselves in our meetings, in our institutions. Plastic is a great example, but I could take another one, diet, right? One of the biggest impacts on the planet is meat-based diets. I don't see any sort of change happening there. And I know it's difficult because it's also cultural. But you know, in Cambridge, for example, where I have one of my affiliations, any events that they organize, they have plant-based, vegan, vegetarian as the default, and then you can request a special meal, which might be meat. So we just flip the logic. Anyway, that's a specific example. I basically agree with you. And I wanted to say, just throw in a metaphor there, since we're talking about food. The challenge for institutions like ours is the same as business. Is sustainability or ethics like the salad on the side? For most institutions it is. It's the thing, you know, it's not the burrito, it's the salad on the side. It's not the burger, it's the salad on the side. We know what happens to the salad on the side. You know, you might get to it if, you know, it's good for you, but, you know, you don't always go for it. So it is about embedding into the core of the business. That's the point. Very quickly on your 2 points. So on impacts, on measuring real impacts, we're still very bad at that. So most of the examples you've seen, and you see it from business as well, are measuring activities or maybe outcomes. So I think it's just a good point you make. We have to measure what is changing in society, in people's lives, as a result of our interventions. And certainly we can put the current state of the world firmly at the doorstep of universities, because they educated the last generation of leaders who have acted in a way that has been destructive for the planet and for people. So point is well taken. On the last one was just the NGOs, about why they're maybe ranked so high. I think it was mentioned earlier, my reading of that is just it's all down to purpose, right? They are purpose-driven organizations. They're not perfect. We could criticize them as well. But it's the same opportunity that I think we've got here as Catholic universities. We're purpose-driven first. And if you look at the business world, that's not often the case. That's the exception. So I think we put the trust in those that we believe are acting in our interest, not just in their own.
Yeah, and just to second that, I was going to take the example of the SDGs. Before the SDGs, we had the Millennium Development Goal, and the UN approach was, let's get the large corporations' policies, which is great, but they're difficult to agree on, and sometimes they get undone as governments change. We have seen that. But NGOs are constant drivers, and they're connected with the communities. And so one great thing about the SDGs is that they're much more participatory in reaching that sustainability level than other approaches that we had in the past. Are they perfect? No, because they're slower, but they are kind of grassroots coming from the community. So I think that engenders the level of trust that other institutions might not have.
If I may, add a good example from my university's experiences to your first point, I want to share our experience as a student staff system. Quite recently, our university introduced a student staff, which means the students also work for the university's administration or management together. Some students who are volunteer raise their hand, and they are also working with our staff together. One of the very good idea, and this idea is already realized, the student criticized why we must use a lot of the plastic bottles. So now students advise, okay, university can prepare for the water cooler in the several places on the campus, and student also encourage all the students, not the requirement, but encouragement to bring their my bottle, and every recess, the student can get some fresh water from the cooler bottle. This is a very good practice. And the reason why the student can think about the global issues as their issues. So that is a very important point when we promote the education for sustainable development. Now the UNESCO has already issued these kind of reports a lot, and they collected a lot of good practices all over the world, especially for the UNESCO-affiliated schools. And UNESCO, as I already know, they issued a Futures Education Report, which target year is not 2030, which will be the 2050, and more 20 or 30 years later, how we can contribute to the sustaining our the future planet. So that is our common goals and common values to share, I think. So thank you very much for sharing my experiences.
Just to say, I don't have anything, but just to say that we live, well, universities, and especially Catholic universities, had a big responsibility to make the link between the present and the future. Because what we are doing is to create future by the young people that is staying with us. And in fact, there are a real tension between be successful in the present and to respond, to answer, to have outcomes, to be accountable, to measure impacts now, and also to create the space to critical thinking for the future, to research even if we don't have results. And the values, and I come to values, help, of course, I hope, help to make choices, and especially to see the proposal. My belief, in fact, is that we have the responsibility to be successful today, to have a future, but we cannot lose this point in the future, the vision. And especially, I think it's a little, just to finish, the music that His Eminence Tolentino talked about. It was the music that we must listen, that we walk around.
Thank you. And I see, Dr. Kibawe, we were hoping to come back to you. So we would like to ask you to do some closing remarks for you based on what you heard. And now we can see your full face.
Thank you. My closing remarks would be, I would just want to answer one or two questions, if you allow, of the questions Professor Wayne asked. There's one that really caught my eye because it is happening today. Fair place because we fought for equal rights. Who lost for us to win our race? Or did we open up new heights? That is one of the questions Professor Wayne asked. And I was looking at it, and I asked also, is the world now fairer, dressed in light because we stood and claimed our right? Did freedom bloom in every street? Or trowel behind unequal feet? Who bore the weight when change was clowned? Were quiet lives turned upside down? And shine, but still, perhaps we built new skies with bridges drawn from sacrifice. Not all were lost, not all undone. Some woods gave birth to morning sun. And I would want to give real examples, real stories that shaped Kenya and echoed across the. And number one is Kenya's human rights movements, where courage, we find courage in the face of power. And Kenya's history of human rights movements is rich, it's raw and resilient. And I have a few pivotal moments and figures. One is the Mau Mau rebellion of 1952 to 1960, where there was a fierce anti-colonial uprising led by Kikuyu fighters demanding land and freedom. And though brutally suppressed, it characterized Kenya's independence in 1963. The other one, we called it Sabasaba movement. July 7th in 1990, there were protesters that were led by late Mativa Laila, who is an activist and in the government right now. They were demanding multi-party democracy under President Moi's authoritarian rule. And the movement led to the repeal of Section 2A and the return of rural. There was also the Mothers of Political Prisoners, 1992 to 1993, that was led by the late Professor Wangari Maathai and other women. They went on 11th month hunger strike outside Uhuru Park, demanding the release of their sons, and it was a turning point in Kenyan's human rights advocacy. The other one happened last year. In 2024, it was about finance bill protests of 2024 that was famously done by the Gen Zs. The Gen Z-led digital protests against new taxes. It shook the nation. Peaceful, witty, and decentralized, they forced the president to withdraw the bill and disband so that, and a month ago, in fact, this month, in July, the same Gen Zs took up the Sabasaba movement, and they were talking of celebrating and whatever, and what movement. We talk of the global movement that reshaped justice. And
okay, Dr. Han, I think we are losing the connection. We thank you again. I promise my colleagues here, there was so much material that we will try to assemble it together and make sure we can distribute it. I know that we had not one, but two poems, because Dr. Han also quoted another poem. I wish to thank everyone here. We took back the 10 minutes that we started late. Sorry for that, and I know that there is the program following. Thank you. A round of applause to our keynote and all the panelists for an incredible session.
Well, once again, I think we should congratulate our speakers once again. We had a very rich discussion, inspiring. Thank you very much, Dr. Visser, for being with us. So now the program will continue, but before going to the coffee break, we have a special guest in the program, Monsignor Carlo Polvani, from the Dicastery of Culture and Education. Monsignor will give us some insight regarding the coming jubilee in Rome, and after that we'll go to for a coffee break and continue with a networking session taking place in Building 4 on the first floor, and then we will finish with two workshops. So Monsignor Polvani, please.
Les pido disculpas porque sé que esto tiene que ir a sus talleres. Es que nos han avisado que algunos de ustedes pidieron informaciones del jubileo de la educación. Entonces aprovecho para darles solo algunos puntos. Todo lo que voy a decir aquí ustedes lo pueden encontrar en nuestro sitio www.dicasterioculturaeducacion.dce.ba. Le comento solo los eventos que son directamente sponsorizados por el dicasterio, porque hay muchísimos otros que hacen parte de lo que el cardenal llama las constelaciones que van con el jubileo. Entonces, enfoco solo en 3 días principales, que son el 30 de octubre, jueves, el 31 de octubre, viernes, y el sábado 1 de noviembre. El dicasterio en esos 3 momentos va a proporcionar eventos que son directamente conectados con la celebración del jubileo. Eso significa, decimos en más detalles esto. El 30 de octubre tendremos en el Auditorio de la Conciliazione, me permito decir que todos los eventos que el dicasterio sponsoriza están en una circunferencia de menos que 300 metros de San Pedro. Entonces, una vez que están ahí cerca de San Pedro, está todo ahí, no deben desplazarse lejos. Entonces, el primero es una experiencia, nosotros decimos de la mente, ¿no? Porque son divididos en experiencias de la mente, la mano y del corazón, y se enfocará sobre la gravísima educaciones y la importancia de aquel documento en su tiempo y la importancia del documento ahora con los problemas de hoy. Y eso es el 30 de octubre y va desde las 9 de la mañana hasta las 18, con varios expertos que discutirán, hablarán. El 31 es un evento que toca más bien la experiencia de la mano. Eso se hace en un lugar muy bonito. No pienso que muchos de ustedes lo han visto, incluso los que van a Roma a menudo, porque está cerrado al público y lo abren para nosotros. Se llaman las Corsie Sixtine, Papa Sixto. Y ahí, a varias olas, los participantes pueden vivir una experiencia inmersiva de la educación y de las cuestiones principales de la educación. Y eso será el 31 siempre de las 9 a las 18. El 30 y 31 a la iglesia San Lorenzo in Piscibus, que está ahí más cerca, hay una oportunidad de vivir también el corazón de la educación con posibilidad de ir y que serán delegadas a los varios institutos religiosos que se han destacado a lo largo de su historia para la educación y que proporcionarán periodos de 45 minutos porque tenemos que vaciar y llenar, son más o menos 100 lugares para cada uno, de experiencia de oración y cada grupo tendrá su forma de hacerlo. Puede ser un rosario, puede ser una meditación, puede ser otra cosa. Termino simplemente diciendo que el 30 y el 31 por la mañana el Santo Padre tendrá 2 audiencias privadas. Las 2 se va decidiendo casi seguramente en el aula Pablo VI y serán probablemente o las 9 o las 10 según el calendario del Santo Padre. Y el 1 de noviembre se cierra el jubileo del mundo de la educación y se cierra con la misa del Papa León XIV en San Pedro. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Monsignor Polvani, for this precious information. Before to close, we will click a photo of our speakers and their gifts, and after that we will go for the coffee break and then continue with the networking session. Building 4, first floor. Yes. Oh, Dr. Visser, Wayne, we'd like to click a photo of you and the other speakers. So I think once again we can congratulate our speakers for this very interesting speech. Thank you very much again. Now, coffee break.